Hello, everybody. Today's debate is on this house. What was it?
Believes that politicians should be required to pass a civil service exam before they can compete in elections.
Very good. Without further ado, Prime Minister, you have the floor. You're here.
Why you keep taking my stuff? Are you coming out here to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, in English.
Yeah, it is. It's Eva.
No, it's not Eva.
It is.
I haven't thought of my speech. I didn't do anything. I've only helped them.
Do it.
Hello, I'm the Prime Minister for today's debate, and I will talk about why politicians should be required to pass a civil service exam before they can compete in elections. So my first reason is they need to know how government works. If they don't understand, they can make bad decisions. Anyone can be politicians.
When did we build? Does they have to? In our first argument, we said like
zero education can be
this, and then I'll add more example. That
and
I have to say like that.
if they don't get any education, they can make bad choices, and they don't know how to properly
Out of order.
negotiate and properly handle. So this means, for example,
Rebecca, can you put it to order?
for example, like.
I'll clock.
An idiot politician could say, if you don't vote for me, I will kill your parents and stuff like that. And the second problem is citizens don't know if they are reliable and honest. If they take the test, the results will prove that they have passed the test and knows about the government. It's reliable because they know that they know about governments and they can do a good job by making good laws for the country to run fluently. And if an idiot doesn't know anything about governments, they can make bad decisions, like laws that are like you can kill people and not get punished. Then like the country, no. And the country would be a mess because like, there is no law about you should not kill people.
Okay, thank you. Speaker spoke for 1 minute and 59 seconds.
No, I did not write 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Oh my god!
30 seconds.
I just thought so.
Oh my god, it's so
She said
sad.
they need to know.
So she
I
said
think I'm gonna be like 61.
who get like elected and then they don't make a law of killing people, but who citizens go select us peoples when they literally said that they will make a law, like they will not get punished. Say like that people
Wait, I know what to do.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Is up?
You know,
No!
Oh my god, I'm sorry if her government loses.
No worries.
I just want one rebuttal.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Mr. Madam Speaker, do you want to live in a world where a politician can't even compete in an election because of this test? This is the government team's world. What if a citizen was thinking about voting for the politician? Hello, I'm the leader of opposition in this debate, and today I'll be rebutting to the PM's arguments, and I'll present our team's 2 arguments. These are my rebuttals. They said that they need to know about the government because they can do weird things. However, we think that this argument is wrong because as soon as they do weird things, they go to jail by the government. And even if they're a president, they can't stop that because they did a weird thing. And these are my arguments. To start, the exam can test all of the politician potentials. A written exam like the civil service exam can't test the politician's leadership, empathy, and vision, etc. Because of this test, leaders with good leadership, personal history, etc. might not even compete in the election because of this test. Of course, their knowledge and their persistence is important. However, leadership is important too. The citizens can see both of their leadership and persistence, unlike the written test, the civil service exam. They can see knowledge and leadership and with their experience. To continue, the exam can be biased. Who knows who designs this test? The questions can be about the designer's own thoughts. The people that often design these are mostly people with elite experience, but the problems can be from their own additional lifestyle or different in any way. This can become a tool to block outsiders from entering the politics. For our country's leader and government and citizens, etc., I'm really proud to oppose.
Thank you. Speakers spoke for 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Deputy Prime Minister, are you ready? 30 seconds. Alright. Oh wow, sorry. That was 50 seconds. Deputy Prime Minister, you have the floor.
50 seconds?
Yeah. I swear I was not biased. No, I was not biased.
He is biased.
No.
I will start my speaking picture. Hello, I am the PM of today's debate, and I will be rebutting to the previous speaker and say the government side's second argument. Starting with the rebuttal, the previous speaker stated that politicians will not be able to compete in election even though they have leadership. However, politicians will be only assessed on their knowledge about the government. So if they want to compete in election, they can study, and if they pass, they will be able to compete in elections. Going into the government side's second argument, our second argument is fair standards. Almost everyone needs to take tests or have interviews to get in a job. They study hard to get in a job that they wanted to win. However, why are politicians not having any exam? This is unfair for the other workers. Having an exam will make them study for their jobs, which will make them know what they need to do and work better. If politicians doesn't take tests, it means that they're not studying or working hard to make a better work. But they will just compete in elections. But citizens will just vote on anyone because they don't know if they're reliable or not. Politicians also need to study for basic knowledges and take tests which will make the politicians to lead the country better, which will benefit everyone. For example, if they're making laws but they didn't study for anything, but they just elected an election because they won they will not develop the road but might make disadvantages. However, if politicians also take exams to compete in election, they will make a law that is beneficial for everyone, which will help the world to develop, not making wrong choices, and will be fair. In conclusion, politicians also need to pass a civil service exam.
POI.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Speakers spoke for 2 minutes and 11 seconds.
I was waiting to POI, but you did not clap.
Sorry.
Oh.
Sorry.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay. We have
You get 50 seconds to her. Give me 20 more seconds. I have a question. What was the time where some kind of people got money from the government or somewhere and went to jail?
Who?
Was it Park Chung-hee or somebody?
who got what? Sorry.
Who got money?
박근혜.
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 Yes. Alright. Use up 51 seconds.
Okay.
박근혜?
박근혜. 박근혜. 해.
박근혜?
박근혜.
여의.
어이. 근혜.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judge, do you want to live in a world where politicians can't even compete in the election because of this test? Because of this test, this is the world on the government side. Hello, I'm the DLO. Under the motion of this cell, believe that politicians should be required to pass a civil exam before they can compete in elections. First, I will rebut to the DPM and say our team's last argument. The DPM stated that when we have to take a test, when you have to get a job or go to somewhere, but when we think about government, it's their freedom by not taking the test. They might have a bad background when they was young and couldn't get a good education. But when they grew up, they will get older and then they will get more into politics. So they might not be kind of smart, but they might know a lot about politics. Now I'll go on to rebuilding our first and second arguments. In our first argument, we said that the exam can test all the political potential. To add on to this, people may have bad background like a poor house, or they couldn't go to the house because of money issues. But when they grow up, most of the people in the government are average 50 to 60s. And in their 50 to 60s, they will be watching news and other things about politics. So they may have good thoughts about politics, about what to do, like getting military drills with the US. But because of their bad background, the test will be blocking them with their ideas that might be good. And that is also blocking the citizens' freedom of voting. In our second argument, we said that the test could be biased. To add on to this, people may give back money to the judge or somebody who grades it and then say to give the answer. This truly happened when Park Geun-hye became the president. Now I'll go on to telling our third argument. Our third argument is that there is no line in
people's thinking of good score. Person A might think that a good score is a 80%, but the government's passing score is a 70%. Then the people will now vote on the people with 70% and vote a person with 80% or more. This shows again that there is no limit for people for thinking about the good score. This could lead to people only studying and taking a test, only studying for the test to get 100. Then people will think that a person with 100 is a very good and smart person, so they will vote on them. And then, but when he becomes the president, he only have a lot of knowledge and doesn't know anything about politics, and this is the reason why I'm very proud of him.
Okay, thank you. Speaking full performance in 44 seconds. Thank you.
Begin my speech in 3.
No.
All right, Mr. Madam Speaker, let's first go on directly into the rebuttals. What the the opposition has just mentioned was on 2 arguments. Number 1, on the idea of money issues, especially on the idea that people who had a poor background cannot get a good education and be able to pass this test. We tell that yes, this is true, or this might be true. However, we're talking about the current day. We're not talking about 40, 50 years ago when everybody was broke and there was a clear class difference, right? Nowadays, we have the access to internet. We have access to different forms of learning and education. We're able to get access to studying lessons from these people. On the third argument that they talk about not knowing that there are any good scores, we tell you why is that a problem, right? Why is it a problem that people who get a higher grade get voted more, right? After all, we do the same thing with Sunung, or do the same thing in society in general, right? We say and we pick from people who go to Sky rather than those who go into, for example, Jibangde because of a test grade. So we don't understand why that's a bad thing at all. So what the government side has to tell us is why choosing people through grades is such a bad thing. Then let's go straight into the to the clashes in of itself. The first clash that we have identified, coming from government side, is which side is able to better protect the interests of the people or the citizens. So this looks like which one is able to protect citizens from not getting scammed, from not having to listen to very surface level promises and not get scammed from politicians. And at the end of the day, probably lose their vote and vote in for, as my prime minister would say, an idiot, right? Only the government side is able to protect this. The opposition keeps on telling us why it's the citizens needing to vote for the politicians supposed to be the most important thing. Here's the problem: we don't understand why that. We don't understand why that's the only problem that they focus on, right? When clearly government side is trying to focus on 2 things. Number 1, that politicians can be anybody, meaning even scammers, even those who have the incentive to lie can become politicians. But secondarily, it is the very same citizens we're trying to help out, so that we can create a more reliable system in which citizens who do vote are able to vote for people in a more reliable and safe way. This also looks like, for example, that people who make different policies, and then, for example, the opposition party comes up and starts talking against them and creating rebuttals against the policy, people will be able to trust in the system because at least they know that both sides know what they're talking about. However, on the opposition side, and the reason why we've been telling you this is they're very surface level arguments, very surface level promises. At the same time, there's no real benefit, there's no real rebuttals that can occur on both sides if we don't know how the government works in the first part. Secondly, citizens lose their trust because they don't understand how it works in the first part. And secondarily, because the politicians are fighting between themselves and citizens know that one of them is probably a crook or is not a very good person, it's going to create even further distrust in the government at the end of the day. What does opposition propose to this? Nothing. They say that it's okay. they said we should allow it. They say that sometimes smart people might not have the money in order to become or take the test, and the test is going to be biased. Here's a second clash. Which side is able to create better progress for politicians at the end of the day? We say that government side. Because, yes, sure, right now it might be hard. Even if in the worst case scenario, it is difficult to pass this test, we say that this is the bare minimum, right? What do we mean by this is, once this bare minimum is passed, then every single person in the country is able to rely and trust in this individual. And here is something that we must clarify. No, we're not talking about a biased test. If this was true, then nobody would trust the Korean SAT or the Sunung, right? Because it is one of the hardest exams, right? When we're talking about the civil service exams, it's to the same level, it's the same independency. So whatever the opposition has been trying to do through this entire debate is false. For all these reasons, government side's entire arguments still stand, and we're very, very proud to propose. Thank you. Right.
How many minutes?
4 minutes and 32 seconds.
4 minutes.
32 seconds.
오.
Government as opposition.
몇 최대?
4 minutes 30.
You could do
English.
4
That is why teachers should have debated.
Yeah.
You can do 4 minutes 30
Yeah,
seconds.
he's evil.
You could do 4 minutes 30 seconds, man. I believe in you.
Okay. I'll start my debate in 3, 2. Hello, I am the opposition whip for this debate, and I will list my rebuttals and then finally list my clashes. So, the government, the PM said that if the government doesn't know, is an idiot, they could create big mistakes that affect the later laws that will be made in the country. Even if they know what the government does, they could still be an idiot that creates mistakes that affects and
You are.
that could affect the future. Moving on to second rebuttal. The DPM listed
You
that-
what?
No,
Why are you lying?
I
You're
know.
supposed to be lying.
Go on.
The DPM listed that if they don't take the test and only take the election, that means they are not smart. But this is not true because there could a person could only run on an election even if they're smart. So that, and they could have not done the test because it was biased because the other people who were trying to run government had given them money to vote for them, which is basically bribing.
POI?
No. And another argument she made was if they don't prepare, they don't prepare for the test. That also means they're not smart. No. They're not smart, but they could have not studied because they were too busy studying what the government does. So that's why.
Out of order, out
No.
of order. Over 3 minutes.
So that means this the DPM's arguments are not true. So moving on to my clashes. The government side said that they need to know what the government does and if they're an idiot they make bad choices and bad laws. But they're saying that then they're saying that even if they know what a government does, if they're an idiot, they will still make bad laws that will lead to a chaotic future.
Right? I think speakers spoke for 4 minutes
I
and
couldn't
35
finish.
seconds.
No.
Hey, but the debate